Hey everybody, happy Monday and welcome to the CNOTE Audio Extravaganza. I'm trying to make that more Spanish every time. Extravaganza! I'm kind of, my dad heard it, he'd feel like I was mocking him. CNOTE here, aka Christian Rivera, and yeah, welcome. I hope you're having a good Monday so far. It's 7:16 a.m. on the West Coast, so many of you might not even be awake. Though, and the weird thing about being on the West Coast to me is that, like, I am fully aware that, like, the rest of the world is awake, and it kind of bugs me. Not that I want to wake up sooner, but it's like, I would rather wake up on that other coast, I guess. For that reason. I love being on the West Coast, but in terms of productivity, it's been a little bit difficult over here. There's a time shift and a mentality shift. It's all very, very different and kind of a difficult thing to work through. I had a whole like intro kind of worked out, and then when you start doing it, everything just kind of goes out the window. That's why, like, even if I was reading off of like a teleprompter, it would probably not go very well. I usually I'm just a very off the cuff kind of person, so this is just kind of how it goes. But today, I did have a topic I wanted to discuss. Today I wanted to talk about the positive power of negativity. It's a little bit contradictory, but I wanted to introduce this as an idea, as a thought that is something that I've been doing since I was a kid, but also aware that there is kind of like a larger thought or other people that have considered this, and I kind of took those ideas and coalesced them into this notion of the positive power of negativity. And what is it, do you say? It is something that involves sort of sinking into a negative space or a negative thought about a level of safety or a level of comfort that allows you to both appreciate the things you have and both realize that some of the things you have are not as important as you think they are. It's really a way to reestablish value in your life. It's kind of a way to audit the things that you care about, and audit yourself, actually, and audit your perspective on the things that you care about. So I think that stuff is important. And before I dive into that, I would like to note that I checked out the watch feature on the Facebook app thing. There doesn't seem like there's much there yet, so really not too much to talk about, but I wanted to kind of bring that back since that's kind of like a part of the narrative that I'm talking about a little bit. And also wanted to briefly, and I know I'm jumping subjects and it's kind of wildly inappropriate, but I wanted to quickly touch on what happened yesterday in Charlottesville and how unfortunate it is, and you know, I hope we kind of retain perspective on that and not just ignore it, and hopefully we can have better conversations with each other about it and not necessarily divide each other any further, and realize that in some spaces nuance is appropriate and in other spaces it isn't. You know, I've been having some discussions with people who are seemingly defending the actions of some people, and I know because I'm more practiced in nuance that they aren't. But now more than ever, I think people are thinking more surface level, and I think we just need to be a little bit more careful of how we are using our words. Particularly when it comes to friends and family and loved ones. The amount of division on that local level is very, very upsetting, and I hope we can find better ways to communicate with each other, which is why I think Anchor is amazing, because we can actually talk to one another as opposed to throwing insults via text or assuming someone's context based on a text-based conversation. Anyway, so when I say that I'm going to discuss the power of negativity, the positive power of negativity, I want to iterate that it's not going to be a negative discussion, and you know, we're still going to we're going to have a good day here, so don't worry. Let's go.
please.
H-I-L-L-Y, north, west, south, west, side, right, H-I-Y, yeah, now here it is.
So the first part of this discussion, as it pertains to the positive power of negativity, is to consider our value when it comes to stuff, the physical things we own, to our home, to our TV, to our watches, to our sneakers or shoes, clothes, things of that nature. Like, think about what would happen or how you would feel if you lost those things. Is your attachment so strong that it would ruin you? I think in most cases, no. I think those things are replaceable at the end of the day. It'll take some time and it'll be devastating, but I think there is power in thinking of it in advance so that when and or if that moment comes, if you were robbed, your house burnt down, somebody stole something from you, that you're better equipped to handle the situation, that you can think ahead of what your next steps would be and not be caught off guard if that sort of thing happens. Meaning, if somebody broke into your car and stole your laptop, how would you approach that situation? Would you sit there by your car and just sob for 2 hours and not really know what to do? Or would you be able to repurpose what you've already considered? I'm in a 5-minute slowdown. All right, thanks, Google. Or would you be able to take a moment to utilize what you've already considered about that moment or about a similar situation that you've considered and realize that, okay, I need to take a breath. I need to think about what I need to do next. I need to call the police, or I need to call the manufacturer and find a way, maybe I can get it replaced, or call the insurance company, call whatever, or gather whatever information you can about the scene, about the situation, take pictures, things like that. Kind of find ways to be proactive and productive in the situation instead of sobbing and being upset. And yes, of course you're allowed to be upset. You should be upset in that situation if somebody stole something from you or burnt your house down. You should absolutely work through those emotions. But also at the same time, if you're able to work through those emotions or work through that scenario in advance, in an appropriate setting, then you would be better equipped to handle that. Now, I know there are negatives to this, which is funny to have a negative side to the power of negativity, but that's what I'm going to discuss in the third segment. I should have labeled that in advance, actually. So let me go back and say that this first one is obviously, as you've already heard, stumbling over my words. As you've already heard, this first segment is more about stuff. The second is about people in your life. And the third is sort of like how you could end up going the wrong way by taking this too far. So, again, to circle back again, this first notion about stuff, it allows us to sort of disconnect ourselves from our stuff in a way. It allows us to value ourselves and value the positive things that we have in our life. So if we were to lose our house, you look at it in a positive way, like, okay, I have my health, all of my kids are okay, my dogs are fine, everybody made it out okay. And granted, that's in a scenario where that happens. If it's worse and you do lose a life, that's going to be something I'll discuss in the next segment. Still getting used to the vernacular. In the next segment. But if it's a case where only stuff is lost, then you can have a greater appreciation for the things that weren't lost, and realize that stuff is replaceable. And if anything, and in so many cases where, like, I've been doing design work for years and I forgot to hit save and I've lost hours of work, often I go back and I redo it and find that I've made it better than it was before. So there's that aspect as well. So taking the time, not really taking time out of your day, kind of like where Zen Buddhists take the time to meditate, is sort of like allow yourself maybe moments before you go to bed, or if you're a person that is equipped to handle that kind of intense thought, to kind of allow yourself to go down that hole, and but be able, it's kind of like spelunking, allow yourself to get out of it. So I very much realize that this is a difficult topic to discuss, because a lot of people don't like going down that sort of hole. They don't like having negativity in their life. But I also feel that if you lean too far into the positive side, meaning if everything's just roses and butterflies, then when the clouds come, you may not be equipped to deal with it. And that's the reality of life, that life is fair in the sense that there are ebbs and flows, that not everything is, unfortunately, not everything is created equal, that not everything will always be roses and amazing, that there is an inevitability when it comes to life and good times and bad times. I don't think it is helpful to ignore the idea that we all are going to die one day. It's not helpful to ignore that we'll lose people close to us, that you could at some point have your house burnt down. You could at some point lose your job. You could at some point lose your boyfriend or girlfriend. You could yourself develop a disease and not be able to live the same life that you've been used to living. And for that reason, to think about those things allows us to not take life for granted, to be aware of the realities of life allows us to not take those things for granted. And I understand that sometimes that puts us into a deep depression, but at the same time, it is a tool, and I'm saying it's a tool because it is not the method, but it is a method if you feel like you have the will to be able to take it, to understand it for what it is. And I would not suggest really going down this hole unless you're aware of what you're doing. If you're aware that you're doing it consciously to provide value to your life, to provide subliminal value to your life, to realize that you're not taking your kids, your family, your wife, your job, your status in life for granted, by imagining what would happen if those things are gone, and realizing that it's really about mitigating that moment in life when somebody passes away and you're standing over their coffin and you say, man, I wish I did this, I wish I did that. And it's not a matter of like, I guess that wasn't the best phrasing, but what I essentially mean is to make sure that we're giving each other the proper amount of love and attention. I don't mean quit your job so you can spend time with your family every single moment of every single day, but I mean to have an appreciation for them and their existence of every moment that you have with them. Meaning, if you have only 2 hours a day with your kids, you need to make every moment, every one of those moments matter. I don't mean quit your job in order to do that, because you have your job in order to take care of them, but to cherish those moments wholeheartedly, as opposed to coming home and being tired and ignoring them. There are plenty of people, particularly men, I'll say that will come home from work, grab a beer, hide in their bedrooms, and ignore existence. I've done that, and not gonna lie, that I have definitely done that, but I also do that to allow myself to have those moments, so that when I do spend time with my niece and nephew and my wife, that I appreciate those moments that much more. So I think it's important to realize that there is a finite amount of time that we have with people, and it's not and even with ourselves, that we shouldn't take those moments for granted, and even imagining the loss of someone will better equip us to handle those moments, but also not feel a sense of regret when that time comes, and you can say, I've loved you and I appreciate the time we had together, as opposed to, I wish we had more.
If you've been dying to start that podcast about doves, or about your favorite jacket, or about a long-lost love, or a murder mystery about a cat who murdered everybody, you can start it now on Spotify for podcasters. I've been on Anchor for a long time, and now it is officially Spotify for podcasters, and it has been a platform that has been growing for forever. And I love it, and I still use it to this day, and it has hosted this podcast for 500 plus episodes now. So I highly recommend it. It is free to use. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer. So no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. I'm literally on my bed recording on my, the phone is on the bed, and I'm just talking, and it's not that complicated. And then you can distribute your podcast on Spotify and everywhere else that podcasts are heard. So video podcasts are available too if you want to show your pretty face and have people see you. You can do all that too. So just do it. It's totally free. No catch. Give it a try. Spotify for podcasters. Let's go.
So I know this topic is very heavy, but I think it's an important one to have. I think it's important for us to consistently reevaluate the meaning of things in our lives, and to look at things that don't matter and make sure that they don't actually control us. I mean, it's nice to have stuff and to strive for things and have goals, but to let it ruin us and let it ruin our families is really what I'm trying to avoid. I want us to put more value in our friendships, our people, and our lives, and each other, and to make sure that, when we are having these intense discussions about politics, that we're putting the value of lives and each other over our nonsense, over the things that don't matter as much, over the things that we don't have control of. So the one fear that I have is someone taking this idea and really soaking in it. Meaning, if you're, instead of imagining a fear of losing your house, you decide to live in that fear, meaning becoming paranoid, meaning, locking and bolting the doors and worried that someone's going to rob you. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that imagine how you would feel if that were to happen, but don't live in that fear. It's kind of like spelunking into negativity as opposed to jumping into a hole and having to climb out. It's the willingly going in there that's the difference. It's the willingness to reassess and to look at our lives and wonder about what value everything has in our lives. And I get it. I know it's difficult, and I'm sorry that to throw such a heavy topic at you on a Monday, but it's important. I think it's important because the top of the week for me is always a time to make sure I am looking at the week and what I'm doing and reassessing the value of life and the things that we have that we're doing and the time that we're spending. I mean, if we're spending time doing things that we hate, then sometimes maybe that negative notion, thinking about the fact that what if I lost my mother tomorrow and I didn't talk to her, or the last conversation I had with her was not a good one, how do I mitigate that? I would call her right away and say, hey, I love you. This is stupid. I want to make sure that we're on good terms, and maybe not necessarily have to resolve the issue that you were having, but to have that discussion and make sure that every situation you're leaving on a positive note, and you're making sure that you're not You're not taking anything for granted. You're not leaving it for tomorrow. You're not leaving the time that you want to spend with somebody for tomorrow. The reconciliation you want to have with somebody, you're not leaving it for tomorrow. Because there may not be a tomorrow. There may not be a 5 minutes from now. And I know that is a scary, paranoid way to think of it. But there's a lot of truth to it. And I think we need to live our lives that way. And now another side of it is escapism. I don't want someone to use this as an excuse to run away from their lives. Meaning, it's a very popular sort of millennial thing, and I hate to call out a specific subset of people, but it's a very popular young people thing to take every bit of your student loan or take every bit of money that you have saved up and go on a vacation to Europe and say it's life experience and kind of leave yourself in a hole or run away from your life. And I do say, on one hand, while you're in your 20s, and if you do have that opportunity, sure, go do it, enjoy yourself. But if you have responsibilities, I would say that it's not about escaping them and living, quote-unquote, life to the fullest. It's more about putting value in your everyday life. It's more about, because, when you come back from vacation, what do you have? You have to go back to life. You have to get a job. Sometimes you have to work harder because you took that vacation. So it's a matter of reassessing your value and looking at the things around you every day and appreciating them every single day. So if you did listen to this all the way through, I hope you got some value out of it, or you kind of understood what I was going for. I think it's easy to misinterpret, so I would appreciate and encourage asking questions to sort of work through it. I would love to reiterate something that maybe you didn't quite understand, but at the end of the day, if I could distill it into one thought, it is about finding any method you can to audit your life and appreciate the value in the things that matter, which is typically people versus stuff. I mean, you can appreciate the things you have and the tools you have to create the things that you love to create, but to spend your entire life focused on getting that sports car, and honestly, when you get that sports car, you might end up striving for something else. So it's really about taking things seriously and not taking them for granted, because even when you do get everything you want in life, because of our human nature, we are always striving for more things. And I think it's a matter of learning to not let those things overtake you, to appreciate what you have, because what you have is hopefully what you've wanted and what you strove for in life. And I think anyone can appreciate it at any status in life, whether you have things or you don't have things. I think even if you're a homeless person, you can find a way to put something in perspective. Now, I assume if you're homeless, you're not listening to this, but I think that is maybe a thought someone has, is what about homeless people? What about people who have difficult lives? What about people who have nothing? Well, you have existence. You have your life. You have your health, hopefully. If you don't have your health, you've probably got something that you appreciate and enjoy. Really, the only thing that you can have that isn't joyful is death. You can have such little things in life and appreciate them, as opposed to always looking at the negativity in life. Looking at your family and saying, man, I wish I could have done better. That sucks. It's that's how you take things for granted. There's so many times where men cheat on their wives or women cheat on their husbands, and they realize that it wasn't worth it. That they go through this spiral of saying they're so difficult, and you get involved in something new and exciting, and you end up ruining something that you took years to build. So it's, look, some people have gone that route and had a happy life. I'm not saying one is morally correct or not, but I think before you even go anywhere near that, should reassess the value you have in your situation and how your life is, and really find as many ways to appreciate things as possible. I've spent a lot of my life striving towards things, getting stuff, and it's really only lately where I'm like, I mean, it doesn't matter. I've got enough. I've got enough. To where, like, I don't need the fanciest car. Yeah, it would be rad. I would love it. But I'm not going to let it control me. If I get to the point in my life where I do amass that kind of wealth through any kind of means, I'm going to give in to that stuff. Of course, I'm going to buy me a nice car. But at this stage in my life, I'm not going to let it ruin my appreciation for my little blue Mazda 3. Because I love this car. It's nothing super fancy, but it's my car. You know, my house is my house. My wife is amazing. I love her dearly. And to, you know, even I've taken that for granted. I've taken so many things for granted. So I'm speaking from a place of experience, more than anything. So I'm gonna wrap this up in the next segment here, but I'm mostly just spitballing a lot because I think it's important for us to take the time to appreciate all the little things in our lives, and for that I think we can have a better, more focused life and not worry about the things that don't matter so much. So I hope you got something positive out of it. I know that was a deep whirlwind of like existential craziness, but that's kind of how I think, and I hope it's a topic that we can see. I wanted to go into like such a heavy topic early in the week so that we can kind of appreciate the more lighthearted topics when we have them, and the more lighthearted things in life when we have them. Tonight, I'm going to a baseball game to see the Phillies in town. I only go see them once a year because they are only in San Diego once a year. Sometimes they're in Phoenix or whatever, but they've been pretty terrible this year, so I haven't really taken the time to even watch them too much. But I love baseball, so I'm excited to go to the game, excited to have a good time with some friends and my wife, and I think it'll be great, and the family, and I think it'll be a good time for everybody. It's a thing to look forward to. I got some fun things to do at work, so I'm going to spend the time doing that, hanging out with the people that I enjoy with at work as well, and I hope you can find joy in the little things in life. If you're living a life that isn't very joyous, you know, maybe doing some kind of audit like that. Maybe it's the negative route, or maybe it's just looking at the things that you do have as opposed to wishing that you had something you don't, will help you find a bit of perspective and allow you to move forward. I think often that strive for the things we don't have doesn't allow us to move forward. It can be very arresting, even more so arresting than imagining our mother dying. As crazy as that sounds, it depends on how your brain chemistry works and how your perspective is, but it's something to consider. I'm not saying you have to do this positive negativity thing, the positive power of negativity. I'm not saying you have to go this route. It's a suggestion. I think it's a nice way to put things into perspective. And you know, for me, I talk about it because I've often had no choice. I've been very, very much aware of my mortality since I was a kid because of my depression and manic issues and things like that throughout my life. I'm very aware that one bad day could make me end it all, and it makes me appreciate all of the time that I do have, every little moment that I have, all of the things that I have in life. And so that, unfortunately, if that day comes, which I fight very, 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 very hard to not allow that to happen, that I don't think it would be, I think I would still have lived a fulfilled life. Or if I were to die tomorrow, I'm pretty content. So it's cool. But I'm totally happy living another 30, 40 years. Totally down with that. No problem there. There's plenty to do. There's plenty to experience. And plenty of love to be given and appreciated and shown. So with that, with all that heavy stuff, I hope you have been able to get something out of it. And if you would like to talk more about it, if you are not on Anchor and you're listening to the podcast version of this, feel free to reach out to me at Rival My Design on Twitter and Instagram. My Instagram is now public, so feel free to message me there and we can chat, whether it be about business or podcasting, and we can discuss these topics and more over there. Or if you are on Anchor, I would appreciate if you could give a call in and let me know what you think about this topic, if you have any further thoughts. I know that it's a heavy topic, so you'll likely have more than a minute of things to say. Feel free to do either multiple call-ins or echo it on your station, and then I will echo your response. And we could do that. That's one way to do it. So with that, I appreciate you. I appreciate this life that we have, and I hope that you can find a way to appreciate yours despite any kind of difficulty that you're going through. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful, fantastic day. I will catch you on the next one.